Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.
Don Le Batard.
Man, I hope the future looks like whatever Elon Musk is imagining.
Imagining is the right word, because he ain't doing anything. He's just thinking about it.
I don't think it's fair to say he's not doing anything.
What's he doing? I mean,
Stugotz.
Seriously, what does he produce, though?
Tesla?
Well, besides that, the ideas are great. The ideas are great. Great ideas. The execution.
I mean, of course, because they've never been done before.
Well, let's go.
Okay.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Lane Kiffin looks like he's been lost at sea.
At times he does.
Yeah, because that Boca sun he's got it all over his face. And he's gotten a lot of sun that he never got in Alabama.
We'll talk to him in a second. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in the Sports Center on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
I got a lot of questions for Lane because that game was fascinating last night. Thank you, Lane, for making time for us. The first place I want to start is, did Nick Saban know before the second half yesterday that his second quarterback is better than his first quarterback?
Well, I think you never know until they play for sure. But I think that, that feeling around that building for this last year, especially, the month leading up to the Sugar Bowl, was that Tua, was very special and had really had practiced great. In that second half of the Sugar Bowl, you would look at the sidelines there and talk to people there were a lot of people that wanted Tua to go into the game, and Coach didn't pull the trigger, obviously, until last night.
Why'd he wait so long?
Well, that's a hard thing to do. You got Jalen Hurts, who a year ago was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, and, your team's winning. So, that's a difficult thing.
But, Lane, who's better? Lane, hold on. You say it's a difficult thing. Why is it difficult for a coach that's fearless and is the CEO of college football? Isn't it, yes or no, the second quarterback is better than the first quarterback, according to Lane Kiffin?
Depends on how you're calling the game. But you got to remember, you're talking about the greatest head coach of all time, but one that is extremely conservative and always has been. He's not someone quick to make changes, with any depth chart, let alone the quarterback. So he's done two very out-of-character Nick Saban things that probably have won him the last two national championships. The onside kick in the Clemson game, when we couldn't stop him on defense, and then going to a true freshman at halftime of that game. Those are two abnormal Nick Saban moves.
Yes or no, he can coach fearlessly because of his position. Yes or no?
He could, but he doesn't. That's not his personality. I mean, and that's not good or bad. He's just an ultra conservative human being, and he plays the game that way too. He's very old school NFL mentality. Whether it's look over years how few times they ever go for it on fourth down. That's just he's just NFL trained.
He is. This is interesting that you would say that. Lane Kiffin with us on ESPN Radio. Basically, the reason that he's being so conservative is because he's got all the best players on defense and special teams, and he can just sit around waiting to not make the mistake because the defense and special teams is going to be better than everyone they're playing against.
Yeah, but I think that's who he is. I mean, he just always has been that way. That's his personality. But yeah, when the defense is playing as well as they were, and going into the game, you can usually tell how the defense is going to play by who they're playing. So I last week, said, all right, this is the matchup Alabama wanted. They didn't want Oklahoma. You can't move the ball just like Georgia in the second half. The old school huddle, go slow, hand the ball off under center, that does not work versus Alabama, and it's never worked. You've got to go ultra fast and have tempo and spread them out, like the teams over the past that have beat them, like Clemson 2 years ago and Ohio State and Oklahoma the year before that.
Let me ask you this question. Lane Kiffin with us on ESPN Radio. What percentage of coaches coaching against Nick Saban do you believe are afraid or not fearless? Not afraid, but not fearless.
Oh, probably none of them. I would think that 90% of them, when they go play against them, just trying to keep the game close, find a way to just maybe somehow win it versus, go after it.
Isn't that a terrible way to coach, Lane? You don't coach that way. Isn't that a terrible way to coach?
I don't know. I just don't believe in it. We led the country in most fourth down conversions, so that's just how I coach. But most people don't do that. I would say over the years, the ones that have, Hugh Freeze did it, and beat Coach twice. Urban Meyer did it in that Sugar Bowl that year. And, Clemson, 2 years ago with Deshaun obviously did it.
Len, you're watching the game last night, and you're watching Kirby Smart, Coach, and you're familiar with Kirby because you coached with him at Alabama. Is there a decision or a play call that he made where you're sitting there and going, wow, Kirby, that was bad. That was a bad decision?
No, I don't think it was really necessarily a decision. I think that it's easy to say today, obviously they went ultra-conservative in the second half, but, they felt like they were playing great on defense, so you can see why they did that. The only problem is when you go ultra-conservative against Alabama, you're not going to move the ball. Right. So I think in that I can see being safe, but I think you still got to give Alabama more problems than the traditional old school, hand the ball between the tackles.
Well, help us out with something. Lane Kiffin with us on the ESPN radio, former offensive coordinator for Nick Saban and now the coach of the mighty Foul Owls at FAU, 10-year contract. I put you as the coach of Georgia last night. It's 2nd and 26. Alabama has the ball. You're in overtime. You've got the 3-point lead, 2nd and 26. Can you explain to me the number of things, like what's the first priority defensively? What are you telling your defensive coaches? It's 2nd and 26. What can't I allow on this next play?
A deep ball, but they're actually again, this is why coaching's such a good and bad profession because, we get too much credit, we get too much blame. The players got to make plays, the players got to do things right. The play actually is 4 verticals, like Coach Saban calls Seattle, like you said. It's 4 verticals, all right? They play cover 2. It's a dead play. Like, it's actually a bad offensive call. You should be trying to get half of the yards back because if you throw that ball incomplete, now you're 3rd and 26, you're out of field goal range. So they're actually in the right call, but the players don't execute it. The corner didn't reroute them, and then the safety looked over to the other side instead of playing in his half. That's why you call it, because the 4 verticals run right into cover 2, and there's nowhere to throw the ball.
I know, but Lane, I'm so confused by how he was that wide open on that play when you know that that's the last thing that you can allow. And not only to that point, but also, Lane, the quarterbacks all night, they were looking downfield and their receivers were covered. The first option and the second option was never there, and it's why Hurts got benched, because they were running sideways and they were putting down after the second option. They were running the ball. How is that open for your season?
That's it. You got to watch, Tua looks to his right and the safety screws up. That safety has that half of the field, and there's only one receiver on that side. That part of the play is super dead because you have the guy double covered, the corner and the safety. The other 3 receivers are on the other side. So that safety all he's got to do is play the half of the field back there, and he's going to throw an interception. But Tua, when he's looking to the right, the safety, all right, bites on his eyes, which he shouldn't be looking at his eyes. He bites on his eyes and moves over there, and then Tua makes a great throw.
He can't bite on the eyes, though. The thing that I was amazed by, Lane, is they're being saluted as it's just some sort of great play. It was an amateur play call by Alabama and amateur defense by Georgia that decided the championship.
But almost professional play by the quarterback. Lane's right then. He held the safety as long as you could possibly
I'm talking about that's a high school call that won that game, and that's a high school defensive mistake that cost Georgia the championship. Yes or no, Lane?
Very fair. And again, that's what I'm saying. Coaching is, it's just that profession where, we're great, when we win, we're terrible when we lose, those things. Look, Tua made unbelievable plays. That's not supposed to be open. He's really supposed to be reading the right side, and he just chucks it. Sometimes when you haven't played like that, that's why backup quarterbacks in the NFL in preseason, they go in and they just move the ball right down the field. Because there's kind of no fear that Tua had in that game. And no one's even noticed this yet. Look at the 4th down conversion for the touchdown where Tua goes to his left.
Right.
He's not throwing to Calvin.
Right.
He's throwing the ball the in route on the back end line.
They had a touchdown thrown to the wrong receiver last night. A mistake ended up being a touchdown. That ball should have been intercepted.
it's a 14-point swing. It's fourth down. They're going to knock it down. They're going to get the ball back right there and have the ball potentially go down and score. Instead, Alabama scores 7 points, and he's not throwing to the guy.
Right. He was not throwing to that receiver. I remember that, Stugotz, when that happened. Yes. We said that's not where he intended for that touchdown to go. That's a mistake. Are Alabama's 2 touchdowns last night a mistake?
Overrated to
I mean, the whole thing. Lane, I'm looking at that, what happened at the end of the game last night, and I'm saying that the mistake that safety made is like Chris Webber. It's like one of the historic mistakes made in the game in terms of what his responsibility was that he allowed that guy to get open.
Yeah, that's why it's such a crazy game, and that's why you get what you get sometimes with a true freshman quarterback. Think how horrible the play is before. He takes a 16-yard sack in overtime. When it's a 3-point overtime, the one thing you can't do is take a sack. You know, that about loses the game for him, and then they have the miraculous play that should be a dead play. And then we're talking about Kirby Smart, being having national championship.
So, Lane, what happens here? Because you said that if Tua doesn't play last night, you think he probably transfers after the game, after this season. He'll play somewhere else next year. So what happens now? Because I thought one of the fascinating things was to see how Jalen Hurts reacted to being benched. What happens now with Jalen Hurts?
Well, I think that, like you just mentioned at the beginning, like I said earlier today, the word was, after not putting him in the Sugar Bowl, after he really thought that he'd beat Jalen out and ability to play, that Tua was gone. And was gone this week coming up right here because schools start their spring semester. So we go from, if they don't put him in, Tua's probably somewhere else this week at a different school and changes the history of college football.
Lane. Jalen Hurts might be available to an FAU football team soon. Lane. FAU, could FAU use a man with Jalen Hurts' skill set?
You guys can't get me to bite on that. Both tried it. One of you trying to get me to say something stupid.
Tamper with the Alabama program and the CEO of college football.
I really didn't do anything, Lane. I just said Lane,
Jalen Hurts, Lane.
I already got how about this? I got a violation because I tweeted at Lamar Jackson. Do you think Lamar Jackson is transferring to FAU? That won the Heisman Trophy. Transferred to the NFL. And I made a joke and I said, Lamar, come home. And the NCAA gave me a violation.
You got an actual violation for that? You got a call from a pencil pusher? What happened? What'd they say?
And you think I'm gonna recruit Jalen on your radio show? Come on,
Lane. We need to break more rules together. Lane. I got a trophy here. It's for UCF. It's 13-0, but I want to give it to you. Can I give it to the FAU Owls to continue your reign as our college football correspondent?
Yes, we'll just claim ourselves as national.
That's fine. All right, we're getting behind this cause.
Top 25.
All right,
we didn't make the top 25. We'll claim ourselves as a
all right,
though.
Send FAU the trophy that we have for Central Florida. Let's celebrate Lane Kiffin. That analysis was really good.
It was great. We went to the wrong school for our crusade.
We really did.
And the wrong coach.
Oh, how much we would have committed so many NCAA violations. Let's shift our focus here. Get behind the FAU Owls and see if we can build them into the program that challenges Alabama.
Dan Le Batard.
Yo, chicken time.
Stugotz.
Smarter God.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Rece Davis going to join the show in about 10 minutes. Terrell Davis, Hall of Famer, going to join us at noon Eastern. And Chris Sims. Still doing that?
Yeah. Only 50 more to go.
He'll join us at 12:30. Get in touch with the show anytime through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed at Le Batard Show, at Stugotz790. Dan, it's time for Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts.
Guillermo, put this on the poll. Are left-handed quarterbacks more aesthetically pleasing?
Yes. Lefties in general are. I'm telling you. A lefty basketball player who's got a sweet jumper, just a wet J, man. I'm telling you.
Michael Beasley?
Yeah, it is so much more aesthetically pleasing to watch than a righty. Same with golf. Phil Mickelson has the nicest, sweetest swing I've ever seen.
Okay, so then make the second question. Are lefties more aesthetically pleasing at everything?
Yep.
So make it two questions. The left-handed quarterback, do you have a bias? There are very few of them. Who are they? Brunell, Esiason? It doesn't feel to me like we have a lot of left-handed.
Steve Young. But they didn't have that kind of fluid motion. Like what you saw last night was a guy, he just flings the ball, and it goes 50 yards. Like Aaron Rodgers, but lefty.
Tebow.
I thought that analysis by Lane Kiffin was both great and unusual. Coaches don't do what he just did. They just don't do that publicly. If you were listening to what it is that Lane Kiffin was saying there, he told you, oh, yeah, Kirby Smart's grapes shriveled up there. He went conservative. He knows that that's not the way to beat Nick Saban. And with the lead, he went conservative because he got scared. And he knows the way on offense to beat them is not to do things conservatively. He knows better than most, and he did it conservatively anyway.
Lane knows that. You think Kirby would know that, having coached with Nick Saban and won 4 national championships with Nick Saban. The only thing I'll say in his defense, because I was saying it last night as it was going on, and I was thinking it, and Kirk Herbstreit lent his voice to it after the game. His 2 best players are running backs.
Those
are his 2 best offensive players.
No, and I understand him trusting that. Regardless, it doesn't change the analysis. Mike Ryan, did you tell me during the break? You've been trying to get this Colin Cowherd thing off the ground since the megacast last night, and it's not funny any time. Did you guys have something funny during the break on Colin Cowherd?
Well, I think the next evolution of our show is we need to reach Middle America the way that Colin Cowherd did, because he's so great at forming these analogies that are super relatable. So when you're talking about that play and that busted coverage, you got to say something along the lines of, it's like when I plan to go out on a long trip. I turn off all the lights, but sometimes I leave the door unlocked.
Sometimes, it just happens.
It's still not funny, though.
I don't understand what you're doing. You've been
not
trying
meant to be funny.
Do
it's meant to connect with Middle America, and the reason why you can't see that is why we're struggling
because we're elitist.
You're incapable of connecting with Middle America.
Yeah. Okay, because we're elitist. So we're struggling in Middle America because our show does not have Midwestern sensibility.
I mean, you were saying they plow fields with tractor trailers yesterday.
I know, I did that. But I mock myself. They're more. Hold on a second, though. I believe that the Midwest is better at being a man than I am. I am simply not
but
any
again,
good.
You're not relating yourself by saying that. Like there is nothing.
Well, I am making the Midwest better than me. The normal complaint among elites, liberal elites, intellectuals is that we look down, we condescend Middle America. I'm telling you that Middle America is better than me.
They don't want to be better than you. They just want to be understood, and they just want you to kind of blend in with them. They don't care if they're better, you're better. They don't care about
our numbers not good in Middle America? Are we not good in Middle America?
You're not connecting the way that Colin Cowherd used to. I asked you to make an analogy that really related to Middle America, and you were incapable of doing it the way that Colin used to do it.
I can't do it. I'm not as good at that as he is. I will not sit here and connect with Ed Orgeron and Will Muschamp. I won't.
We need them. Yeah, we need them. Will Muschamp was not tuning in to our megacast.
I'd rather connect with dirty Boca Lane Kiffin. That's more my scene. And that dirty Boca Raton Lane Kiffin is more my scene, teasing him about, hey, you want to steal Jalen Hurts from Alabama. That's more my scene than Cathedral of College Football, Baton Rouge.
But they don't steal like in Middle America, man. You're not relating to. I'm relatable to everyone. I think Middle America loves me.
Do I need to be more relatable? Put that on the poll, Guillermo. Does Dan need to be more relatable to Middle America? I feel like Stugotz has got that covered for us.
You're like the guy from Wall Street that goes to the sock hop and just can't do-si-do.
Don Le Batard.
Stugotz is kind of morally bankrupt.
Stugotz.
That's fair.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
We got kayaking news. We've got breaking kayaking news. We'll get to that in a second. Also, I love that Lane Kiffin, basically, we found a coach who understands that everything is as ridiculous as we think it is.
Yes.
Everything in sports. He does not care about NCAA rules. He comes on here and he jokes about tweeting to Lamar Jackson. He doesn't care about the NCAA rules.
And it is ridiculous when you think about it.
Of course it's
Like
ridiculous.
when Lane says, what do you think? He's going to leave? Louisville come to me?
Of course it's ridiculous, but he's thumbing his nose at the authorities.
Yep. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Rece Davis going to join us there in just a second.
Stugotz, one of the reasons it's so inspiring to see Lane Kiffin just sort of urinating all over the place is look at this war we got going on right now with the NBA coaches super serious, like Rick Carlisle and Stan Van Gundy, our friend Stan Van Gundy, going after LeVar Ball for having for being glittery.
Right.
For being a loud thing that comes and upsets their social circle.
Well, they're coming at us for giving them a platform, right? For making them a story.
Correct. Yeah. They're mad at ESPN because we're partners with the NBA and they don't want LeVar Ball criticizing their coaches. And now the coaches are uniting. You can't get these coaches to unite on anything. Right. And they're uniting against LeVar Ball.
How about they stick to coaching? Leave the entertainment decisions to us. How's that sound? I mean, Rick Carlisle.
Honestly.
He wants us to cover his dreadful team.
These coaches are telling ESPN how to run its business. Do you remember? Hold on a second. Rece, we'll get to you in a second. But do you remember when Stan Van Gundy was going to be the Doug Collins? He was going to be on that pregame show, the NBA. Sure. He was really honest and really forthright, and he was somebody who was going to say interesting things and become a personality on television. It was all set to happen, and somewhere along the line, David Stern nixed it because of this partnership between the NBA and basketball and ESPN, its broadcasting partner. And Stan Van Gundy said on this radio show, you have to have no testicles whatsoever to pay someone billions of dollars and then allow them to make the decisions. And now Stan wants to do it too.
Yeah.
Stan wants ESPN to bow down and allow the coaches to run LeVar Ball out of our sports coverage. Get the hell out of here, man.
Van Gundy, I mean, we love you, man, but you should be ashamed of yourself. Anyway, here's your SportsCenter update. Bill Belichick said that it was absolutely his intention to return as coach of the Patriots in 2018. Great. Tom Brady joined his weekly radio hit with WEEI, and in regards to him wanting Jimmy Garoppolo traded, said, quote, in 18 years, I've never celebrated when someone has been traded or been cut. And finally, a dog that was snatched by an eagle in Pennsylvania was found alive 6 kilometers away.
That happened to Big Boy's dog, Halle Berry, except it wasn't found alive.
Exactly.
Not as lucky.
Yes, not as lucky. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. I don't want to waste any more of Reese's time, but we are sitting on big kayaking news. We'll get to it next.
Yes, there's a food poisoning situation. Yes. Somebody spiked a drink. Yes. And also, we'll get to that sound of Kerry Champion asking Big Boy about his dog, Halle Berry. But before we do that, Rece Davis is with us. And, man, what an arbitrary champion we've crowned here. Regional champion, SEC champion. Tell me last night.
Rece is going to disagree with you.
I know. That's fine because the entire structure and establishment disagrees with me. But
because Alabama's scheduled.
Yeah, whatever. So Rece Davis with us now.
And he went to Alabama.
Can you explain to me, Rece, please, give me the advantages in the sport that Nick Saban doesn't have. Can you list for me a disadvantage that Nick Saban now has in that sport?
I cannot. I mean, I don't know what disadvantage you would think of. He's probably the best recruiter in the sport. He's, in my judgment, he's not only the best coach right now, he's the best coach of all time. Doesn't mean he knows more ball than other terrific coaches. It just means that he's put his structure in place, and it's been more successful than anyone else's.
Rece, I feel like the time to get them was the last 9 years because they've been able to do this without a quarterback, and they're going to realize at some point that that having a quarterback and a long ball can serve them.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And I just talked to Nick a little while ago, and he said that the reason he made the change was because Georgia and several teams down the stretch of the season have loaded up to stop their running game, and they just hadn't been able to make plays. And Tua has been pushing really since the spring. And obviously he's wanted to play, but Jalen Hurts has been so successful and has been such a steady hand and leader for them. It's hard to make the change. But last night, you had no choice. If you continued down the path that you were going, then you were going to lose the game. And I don't think that given the way the players reacted when Tua came into the game, that even had it not gone well, Nick was not in danger of losing the team by making that switch. I think the player, you can never fool the players about what is needed or who is needed in a certain situation. They knew that, that Tua is a gifted passer, and that's what they needed to have a chance to win last night.
Yes or no, Rece Davis, college football expert, realized as it happened that 4th and 4 play that was a touchdown was thrown to the wrong receiver by accident?
There were a lot of people. There were a lot of people on the sideline, so I'm not going to say that I was first to see it. I did see the traffic in the back of the end zone because I happened to be down on that end of the field when it happened, and Ridley just sort of flashed in and caught it. But I agree with McShay and a lot of other people. I think he was trying to throw the ball to the guy on the back line of the end zone.
I know you're supposed to, Rece Davis with us here on ESPN Radio. I know you're supposed to remain neutral, Rece, or at least try to, but you went to the University of Alabama. So put us next to Rece Davis as that final play unfolds.
I was standing by Booger McFarland, and you know what? I know you guys hate this kind of stuff, but it's really true. When you cover this sport as closely as I do, and you get to know everybody, and you also realize that since I didn't play at that level, nobody gives a flying toot where I went to school,
All right, you need to settle down. All right, you need to settle down because once we've gotten to the flying toot portion of the conversation,
we're okay. I dumped it.
No, we're going to have to let you go. We're going to have to let you go. You're off the reservation. What is happening here?
You're unhinged.
What is happening here? Calm down, Rece.
I didn't know if I could say fart on your high level radio.
A flying
program,
fart was where you were going to go to the edge, well beyond the flying toot.
Yeah, which is, I try to keep the language clean for the kids, Dan. I know you're trying to be a good influence out there, but nobody cares where I went to school. And so, I'm not going to be one that goes up and beats my chest and say my school won or didn't win. This is a story I've told a lot, and you guys don't love the serious stories, but when Alabama beat Clemson in Phoenix, I was walking back to the office and I ran into Dabo Swinney's wife and kids. And I've known them, and they're friends of mine, and I saw the heartbreak and the anguish. When you get to know the people around, it's really not that difficult to remain fair. There's no such thing in the world as unbiased. Everyone has their perspective on things, but it is not hard to be fair. And that, in my judgment, that's what we're called on to do.
Okay, that's fine, objective journalist guy. What we're asking you is, did you shout, holy bleep,
No.
2nd and 26, that play's not supposed to be open.
At least on the inside.
That play's not supposed to be open. I'm incredulous. Anything. What did Rece Davis do?
Absolutely. No, what I said to Booger was like, holy crap, what a freaking throw.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yes. Roll Tide.
I mean,
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Well, but I'm going to tell you, you know what? It was funny. It was really interesting. I rode back to the hotel with Jimbo Fisher after the game, and hear him breaking down the defense and what the safety should have done in that situation and why he didn't do it is, it's funny to hear, what the coach immediately recognizes from watching a play like that.
Rece, you are exceptional. You're as good as we've got at the network. You are a face and a shining light on behalf of journalism and broadcasting.
And the hair.
But you are too close to all of these people, and it's getting in the way of your fun. Like, you're too close to all of them. You're seeing the heartbreak in Dabo's wife and, everything else, and it's like, separate yourself. You're too close to the inside. You need to have some emotion in your life.
And you might want to pick up some of the names you dropped.
Yes. Oh, you dropped so many names. I saw Jimbo. I rode with here for Jimbo. I rode there with Dabo's wife. I stood next to Booger. Nobody gives a flying toot where I went to school, but perhaps they give a flying toot about all these names I'm dropping.
Well, see, the problem is because I never get to run in the social circles in the hip clubs in Miami with you guys. That's what it is,
No, not with me.
All right, thank you,
No,
Rece.
not with you, Stu. It's just Batard.
It's also a bogus national championship. UCF has his rightful acclaim. I'm not even kidding, Rece. I know that you're the college football face and voice, but I am saying that never before have we had such a clear doubt about whether we should have co-champions or not. Co-champions.
No, you're out of your mind. Never before. What about LSU and USC?
How many undefeated teams are there in the country right now, Rece? How many undefeated teams are there?
Wait, that's not what you said. You said never before have we had such a doubt that there should be co-national champions.
That's right.
You said. And you're wrong about that.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
2003. Well, number one, because LSU and USC in 2003 would certainly be a debatable point, as would many others in the past. But here's the analogy that I would draw. Just because I think his name is Pedro Fullerman from the Phillies, hit .364 this year as a late season call-up. He didn't win the batting title. He didn't have enough big league at-bats.
This is bull bleep. No, this is the regional champion. No, this is your SEC bias. We're in bed with the SEC network. This is your SEC
You're
bias.
Out of your mind.
This is what's
You're
happening
out
here.
Of your mind.
You're telling me how much better is Mississippi State than the University of South Florida? Tell me, because they're not. The teams in the SEC are not better than the South Florida team UCF beat.
So is that the measure that you're going to use to apply?
Should the measure be that you think the SEC is great?
Level teams are.
Phone issues, Dan.
Let me ask you this: do you think that going through the schedule in the American Conference, while it's a good league with good teams, is the same as going through the Big Ten, the Big 12, or the SEC or the ACC?
He does, Reese. Reese, I want to be clear. We're all with
you're
you.
Out of your mind.
No, we're all with you.
We're
all with you, Reese. He is out of his mind.
No,
yes,
the
Reese.
way that he frames it there, he's right. But I could come back just as easily and say to you that if Alabama had exactly Central Florida's resume, you would make them the national champion. I could say that, and you would, because of the reputation Alabama has.
Not if they played the American schedule, which is again a good league. And the reason I don't like these debates is because it sounds as if I'm bashing UCF. They had a great year, and they're capable of beating teams. Maybe they are capable of running through.
They should be co-champion.
We have a system. You can't just change
I can. I think the system's bogus. I can.
I
already paid a fine.
Reese, stay strong, man.
You should declare them. You could get them a trophy.
I have a trophy.
They didn't
I have a trophy here for them that they won't accept. It's a trophy. Somebody send it to Rece Davis. I have a trophy. I've got 4,500 T-shirts declaring them national champions.
You just agreed to send it to Lane Kiffin. You can't send it to everyone.
I know. I'll send it to Reese too. Send a piece of it to Reese so he can eat it.
No one wants the trophy.
I know. I'm very ashamed of that. Reese, I'm sorry for my tone. I do love you, and thank you for playing along with our show.
No, man, I enjoy it. I love it. I love being on the show. You guys have a great one.
Roll Tide. Roll Tide.
I don't give a flying toot.
Say it, Reese.
I don't care what you care about.
Dan Le Batard.
Texter writes in, oh, wow, Dan, you don't argue and you don't yell. You're so perfect, except you have the face of a 600-pound man.
Stugotz.
I couldn't talk.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
All right, Reese, we wanted to bring you back on because Dan is unhinged and he's rude, and we spent the entire commercial break yelling at him because two things. We want to have a good relationship with College Game Day and everyone associated with College Game Day because we love the show, and the people who work on the show have been great to me and our staff. That's number one, okay? And number two, I've never seen Le Batard like this. He is unhinged when it comes to UCF, that he won't allow even someone like yourself, who is a college football guru, he will not allow them to finish answering one of his questions because he is so passionate about the fact that UCF should be the national championship.
And Reese is too close
Stop
to it.
Don't talk. And Reese is not too close to it. Reese is fine. I mean, Reese went to the University of Alabama, was standing next to Booger McFarland, and did not even give out a fist pump or a roll tide when that play unfolded.
Can we let a guest answer a question here? An invited guest. You want, give me one example. No, that's not good enough, even though they actually split a national championship. That's not good enough. What happened in the early 2000s? Not good enough. Give me another one.
What's the matter with you? Seriously, don't talk. Yeah. Rece Davis, did you feel any of this as it was happening last segment?
I remain amused by Le Batard. I think he's a brilliant guy who sometimes gets overly passionate and loses sight of.
Reese, just bash. Reese, did you feel it? Did you bash it?
I was rude.
He was so rude.
I was rude to you.
Dan, let him finish. Let him finish, Dan.
Yeah, let him finish.
I just think that Dan likes to be a contrarian. I mean, Dan knows that.
No, but you really got to crush him here, Reese. We're going to let you finish in a second.
He's too nice. He's too nice. He gives too many. He gives too many flying toots about what people think.
Stop interrupting Rece Davis.
Reese, do me a favor. We'll let you go as long as you want, as long as you're giving it to Le Batard. That's it. Okay, just go. We won't cut you off.
Hey, look, I'm not gonna get down there because it just...
The College Game Day people have to hate us, right? The College Game Day people hate us. They talk about how much they hate us every College Game Day, right?
Is that fair? Reese, is that true?
That's usually the early part of the meeting, but then we move on from that afterwards.
But the thing they really hate about us is Dan, right?
It's me. Yeah, it's me. I deserve
Well, I mean, I was courtside for one of the great Le Batard rivalry moments when I was sitting beside Billis. Billis got off the all-time zinger on Le Batard and told him, fine, then take offense. I'm not talking about that anymore, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You want to listen to that again? That was great fun.
Will you stop interrupting Mr. Davis?
Reese, we have that sound for you. We'll play in a second, but finish. Go ahead. You were sitting right next to him.
I always think it was a great quote. Jay used in a rare attempt by Bill to be polite, said, no offense, but, I don't want to talk about this. And Dan said, you can't say no offense and say whatever you want or whatever he said. And Bill said, well, fine, take offense. I'm not talking about this anymore or whatever he said. I laughed.
Yeah, here's the sound. Here it is, Reese.
If someone with Tyler Hansborough's resume were black, do you think people might say he's unathletic or he's not athletic enough?
Dan, no offense, but this is stupid. I mean, all due respect. I mean, if you guys want to talk about this, I'm here to talk about whatever you want outside of this. This is stupid.
We don't have to talk about anything, but it's not stupid. And you can't start a sentence.
It is.
Jay, you can't start a sentence with no offense and then say this is stupid.
Okay, then take offense. It's stupid, and I don't want to talk about it.
That was a good one. I got to give him that one, Reese. That was a good one. You got me.
Dan, stop interrupting.
That was a good one.
I am so sorry. We keep inviting you into our home. You know what Dan's like? He's like the dog that you've had your whole life, and anytime you have company over, you say, he's not a bad dog. He's not usually like this, but every time you know he's exactly like this, and in your heart of hearts, you know he's a bad dog, but you love him.
Yep. Now, Reese, we got like 20 seconds here. If UCF plays, Dan will not say a word. If UCF plays Alabama's schedule, how many losses do they have?
3.
Yep.
You mother! I will strangle you to death! Stop it! I will strangle the life out of you! Reese Davis in front of everybody!
Hey there, I'm a glue stick, so I have one job. I glue kid stuff. So sorry for being jealous of Geico, who does a ton more, like give you 24/7 access to thousands of licensed agents. And Geico has been around for over 75 years and has a 97% customer satisfaction rating. While I've just got mediocre adhesive skills, Geico also has an award-winning mobile app. Uh-oh, arts and crafts time. No eating the glue stick, Miss Lydia!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.